What's going on with Crack-a-Lack and my peoples, how you doing? I'm Jerry Quickley, and this is happening. Couldn't be happier that you're joining us today. I hope that you also tune in for our podcasts on soundcloud.com/TIH Live. Again, you can check out all the shows plus extras that the FCC says we can't air on the radio, and you can check that out on soundcloud.com/TIH Live. It's a big day today. I couldn't be happier that we're going to be taking this walk together, arm in arm, as we try to fly this ship out of the swamp of racism and despair into the stars of justice. All that and more. We're going to be taking a walk down the media lane landscape called America in this toxic ecosystem called Trumplandia. We're going to be checking in with MSNBC and other mainstream news outlets. We're also going to be checking in on what the latest haps is as the Trump administration is coming apart at the seams. And they're still insisting, we're going to put in judges. We're going to give another $100 billion in tax cuts to the super rich. The $6 trillion we gave them wasn't enough. We're going to do another $100 billion. And the government is continuing. The Republicans are eating at the trough and feeding themselves and their wealthy friends. They are pigs at the trough, and they can't push away from the table because they know this is the last time, in all likelihood, they will ever have access to loot the country in the way they are doing now. This is the last goddamn time. This is the last time. We're going to be taking your calls in just a little bit. Beyond that, though, we are going to be playing these media clips to give you a sense of the horror that we're all living in. My name's Jerry Quickley. This is happening. Let's get it cracking. Let's get it started. But you know how we do. Let's kick it off like you always do with National Native News. What's going on with Crack-a-Lack and my peoples, how you doing? I'm Jerry Quickley, and this is happening. Couldn't be happy that you're joining us. We're going to pilot this ship out of the dregs of the swamp of racism into the stars of justice. Really super excited you're joining us today. Also want to let y'all know that last year was the most difficult year of my life walking the earth. Really tough year for me. Lost some people I really loved and cared about, not to mention the Trump administration coming in. Anyway, all that got chucked into a record called American Fool, and I am doing the only U.S. show for this record on Saturday. It will be in the city of Los Angeles at a venue called the World Stage in Leimert Park, 8 p.m. Saturday. Jerry Quickley doing American Fool. If you dig the record, or a fan of the record, and if you live in the States, anywhere near Southern California, come check it out because it's the only show we're doing in America. So I hope to see you Saturday. Come on down, check it out. Check out some of the music. We'll hang out. We'll talk. I'll probably be at Aki Bamboo earlier, getting down on some short ribs and some ginger lemonade, doing my thing. Anyway, hope to see some of y'all all on Saturday. Also, later this week, we be starting up our fund drive and a little bit more on the American Fool show then. But let's jump right into it, y'all, shall we? We're taking your calls at 818-985-5735. Again, the phone number here is 818-985-KPFK. I want to play this clip from CNN. This is Anderson Cooper's show earlier today, where half of the people you hear from in this, Amanda Carpenter is one of the people. She used to be Ted Cruz's press flack, right? She ran press for Ted Cruz, not the most progressive role you can imagine. And Rich Lowry from the National Review, who basically says, there's no there with this Trump thing. And you also hear from Bakari Sellers, and this is about the cascade of lies coming out of the Trump administration. And it's just interesting to have a window into mainstream media as they argue about things that are already proven. I can't believe that CNN gives people like Rich Lowry a platform to do this. We're just checking in on you folks so you can be aware of the level of lies occurring on a daily basis. So some rich piece of crap at the corporate level at that network gets to buy a new Tesla for his children each goddamn year. Let's give a listen.
Questioning people's motives and what they think about Trump is not a sound political or legal defense. But I do think we should pay attention to one thing that did come out of the Giuliani interview this morning that I thought was extremely curious. In addition to him saying that collusion is not a crime, he oddly said that Trump was not physically present at the Trump Tower meeting. And to me, that may be a way that Giuliani was trying to draw a very fine line that Trump may walk. I think that certainly warrants some more follow-up in exactly what Giuliani meant by he was not physically present at the
It's very
meeting.
important to remember about this meeting, though. There's no indication that it was anything other than a nothing burger. The white whale in this case, Amanda, as you referred to before the break, is some sort of conspiracy with the Russians to commit a crime and hack these emails. And so far we have zero
But the timeline is
evidence
certainly
of that.
very suspicious, in which Trump said he would preview a speech about Hillary Clinton that didn't materialize, and then he continues to call on the Russians to hack and reveal Hillary's emails during the Democratic
convention. If you go back and look at that statement about hacking,
how do we not?
Nobody knows. I'm just saying the timeline is very suspicious, and that's why we're in the middle of an investigation.
Do you think he was secretly, he was openly sending signals to Russian intelligence what to do with his speeches? I mean, that's.
I mean, he literally
asked the Russians to hack her emails. I mean, just quote him.
But you think Russian intelligence was looking for signals from presidential candidate Donald Trump what to do?
I didn't say he said it.
Yes.
Roll the
Why
tape.
is this so hard? Why are people forgetting facts? Why are people forgetting facts? The president of the United States, when he was a candidate, said, hack the 30,000 emails. He literally said that. Not only that, but you have somebody who pled guilty. He was the former national security advisor. He was a campaign surrogate. Michael Flynn pled guilty to lying. You started in Whitewater with the Clinton investigation. You ended with a blue dress. That's how these investigations work. It's all fair game.
Womp womp. Taking your calls here, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Remember when the Republicans went after, what was that guy's name? I'm getting old, I forget. He went and basically did a yellow cake study for the Bush administration and proved that all the claims about Iraq trying to get yellow cake from Niger were totally untrue. And Joe Wilson, that was his name, Ambassador Joe Wilson. And they went after him and his wife, who was a CIA NOC agent involved in non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. So they literally the Bush administration took out a former ambassador who did his best to do whatever was asked of him in terms of keeping the country safe out of war. Joe Wilson also, did his best to stand up for the Americans that were trapped in Iraq in the first Gulf War back in the early 90s. And they went after his wife and destroyed her career as a CIA NOC, where she was involved in literally making sure that nuclear weapons did not proliferate. She was in the anti-nuclear proliferation program, and they went after him like he was a Catholic cardinal who had been left alone with children. That's how they went after him. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735 is the phone number. That's 818-985-KPFK. First up, let's talk to Alex. Alex is calling from Washington. Alex, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hello, Bear. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for calling.
I'm so excited that you're having the show. I'm sad that it's in LA, but I'll be with you in heart. I have a question relating to American Fool. I actually was planning on calling earlier, and then you started off with it, so it's definitely meant to be that I called. Do you ever plan on unpacking the album on show, just to maybe cover something else other than this insanity that's going on?
Yeah, I might unpack the album a little bit here. I'll definitely be unpacking it at the show at World Stage on Saturday, and there's also, if you're a fan of the record, we have some new shows we're going to be doing next year. We're going to be touring the record in Europe, along with a project that I collaborated on with Philip Glass called Whistleblower. And so it's going to be like a dual evening. The first part of the evening will be the work that Phil and I did together called Whistleblower. I'll take a little intermission, and then we're going to have an American Fool part of the show. So we're going to be doing that in several cities in Europe. And because as an artist, that's, like 1% of my work is in LA. The rest of it's in the rest of the world. So
I feel like the whole world could benefit from listening to that album.
Thanks, bro. I really appreciate that. We put a lot of hard work into it. I appreciate that it resonated with you.
Don't stop what you're doing. I was wondering if maybe even have him Reagan as a guest to go through his mindset too behind producing the whole thing with you, and you guys.
I'd really love for that to happen. And for those of y'all that don't know, Reagan Farquhar is the composer and producer I work with on American Fool. He's also known as Bus Driver. In addition to being a composer, he's a ridiculous MC. And I'd like to do that with, and you know, Reagan's got a great new album out called Electricity is on Our Side. I can't even get him in here to talk about his record, but I'd love to have Reagan come on and unpack that. We did something on Dub Lab a little while back with Frosty a few months ago where he talked about a little bit, but I'm really excited to have these conversations about the record because to me there's no walls in what I do. There's no walls between my work as a poet. There's no walls between my work as a musician. There's no walls between my work as a librettist or a reporter. So the work on American Fool is very much a reflection of this American moment.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. Thank you so much for
Thanks, bro. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. Again, that's 818-985-KPFK. Let me see. Next up, let's talk to Jan calling from Northridge. Jan, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hi there. Listen, I want to talk about a couple things. You were talking to a Colombian last week about...
Hacker Fiscalia, who was an investigator in the Colombian Attorney General's office. Yes.
Yes. Well, not too long ago, I don't know when, I heard someone speaking on Pacifica, and it had to do with Danny Sheehan, talking about Bill Clinton, being a known cokehead, and that he actually took in coke from Central America, laundered money in the banks of Arkansas when he was a governor, and then said to some people that were, I guess, at the federal level or, nationally trafficking in coke, basically let them know that he'd like to be cut in and that he wanted to be president. Okay, that's one example of what goes on here.
Well, it does, Jan, but I'll share, you shared your version. I'll share my version that I'm aware of. I'm not claiming that my version is accurate. Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas at the same time that the CIA had a private airport they were using in Mena, Arkansas, to fly cocaine into the United States from Colombia.
Exactly.
In order to fund a range of illicit activities for the Contras in Nicaragua, and also because when that dried up, they decided that they would just sell illegally silkworm missiles to the Iranians and use the profits from that to fund these terrorists in Central America that were killing nuns and priests and kids. So when you are the governor of a state in which the CIA has set up an illegal private airport, the airport's legal, but what they were using it for was illegal. In fact, Tom Cruise just did a movie, a biopic on the pilot that ran that, Barry Seal. American Made was the name of that film that was just released last year. But here's what I'm getting at. Bring it to a point. When you are the governor of a state like Arkansas, any state in America, and the CIA is using a small portion of your state to do illegal operations, run drugs, flying Contra, etc., what you're doing is totally illegal. You're training you're training foreign nationals with automatic weapons. You have massive amounts of cocaine and money and cash. It's all illegal, but it's all protected under a temporary cloud of lawlessness that descends from the CIA. And so if that base wasn't in Mena, Arkansas, that air base, that airport the CIA bought for Barry Seal, and they used to train the Contras and flying the cocaine and the money and blah, blah, blah. If that base was instead of in Mena, Arkansas, if it was in Crap Splat, New Mexico, or if instead it was in Willow Bend, New York by the Canadian border, that same cloud of illegality and lawlessness descending from the CIA would appear over that airport regardless of the state that the airport operated in. Now, that being said, it would require of the governor of any of those states, it would literally require their willful consent, because here's what happens. The federal government says, you will not arrest them, you will not do this, you will not do that, and they agree to not arrest and prosecute these people. Now, in that sense and in that regard, Bill Clinton was actively involved in procuring and facilitating the distribution of drugs through an illegal CIA base in Mena, Arkansas. And his role definitively was that he would not allow his state attorney general to prosecute these crimes. Beyond that, and that's well documented, right? We know Clinton did that. I think it's a bit of a reach to go past that and say that he was part of this cocaine operation and profiting and look to cut himself in on it. I'm not saying that his character is such that he wouldn't do it. I'm saying without documentary evidence, because everything I just talked about, the CIA base in Mena, Barry Seal, them using it as a covert action center for training Contras, for moving money, drugs, this is all documented. This is not Jerry Quickley's opinion. This is incredibly well documented by other very, very talented journalists. The portion that you mentioned about Clinton being in on the deal, like the former Colombian president, etc., that may or may not be true, but I haven't seen documentation to support it yet.
Yes, I understand. What I've heard is different commentaries from different folks, and I cannot remember their names. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't trust Bill Clinton further than I can throw him. He's a big-time white supremacist. He went in on black people, not just in his campaign, and his wife calling people super. He went on black people during his wife's campaign because he thought he was going to create another Sister Soldier moment. I'm done with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, if I never hear his name again, it will be too goddamn soon. He's a part of the previous century.
Yeah, he is. And, you know, they're pushing Hillary now. We're supposed to
Oh, please. She was the most failed major political candidate in modern history. The only one who approaches her level of failure is Michael Dukakis. Let's be clear about this. Hillary Clinton couldn't even beat Donald Trump. If you, as a national politician, and you've been gearing up for this for 30 years, and you can't beat a racist hack like Donald Trump, who's committing a broad array of felonies, and you can't defeat him, you're dead to me as a political candidate. Go and enjoy the world. Like, I don't know what you want to do. Like, go study at MIT, bake brownies. I don't care, but get off the political landscape, because we're stuck with Trump because the DNC had their goddamn finger on the scale for Hillary Clinton.
Listen, I told the Democratic Party, stop asking me to donate. Find a good candidate, for God's sake.
Right. You're right. Jan, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it. Look, I know Hillary Clinton supporters always get worked up, and I get this hate mail. Jerry, but you don't understand. No, here's what I understand. Hillary Clinton is a racist. Hillary Clinton is a racist because she chose the path of racism because she thought it would secure her a slightly larger base. Instead of standing unflinchingly on the side of people of color, she, like most elderly white politicians, has a long history of racism. And I haven't forgotten a single racist comment she's ever made because she's never apologized for it. Hillary Clinton would not have been good for America. Would she have been better than Donald Trump? Of course she would. That's not saying anything. I have a 6-year-old niece who would be better than Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton would not have been good for America because the only way she would have gotten in was with the Democratic thumbs on the scale tipping everything in her favor, literally making it difficult, committing acts of fraud against all other Democratic candidates because she was so tied into the Democratic machine that they literally broke the law to push her on us, and she still failed. She still failed. She still failed. I don't care about Hillary Clinton's emotional needs. I am much more interested in where we move forward together as a country. I don't care about Grandma Hillary's emotional needs. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. In this next clip, this is from MSNBC, and Katie Tur is talking to their legal analyst, Danny Savalas, and he says that as a result of the Trump CFO, the chief financial officer of the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, was subpoenaed last week. As a result of that subpoena, the Trump Organization is now on blast. There's no privilege for accountants. They are not priests or attorneys, and Weisselberg is going to sing like a canary or his old ass is going to jail. Let's give a listen to this clip with Katie Turr and Danny Savalas on MSNBC.
First, people should be aware that there is not the same client privilege when it comes to accountants who are subpoenaed. There is no real non-criminal independent accountant privilege that this person can assert if called before a grand jury. So there's going to be nothing to prevent him from divulging everything that he knows, and even more so if he has any potential exposure. As somebody whose eyes passed over all kinds of activity, if there is criminal activity in the books, then the federal government can make a pretty strong case threatening the witness and saying, hey, look, you might have some exposure here. You better tell us everything you know.
What does this mean for the Trump Organization's exposure? Not just Donald Trump or Michael Cohen, but the organization as a whole.
The organization as a whole is now being put under the microscope of some of the best financial prosecutors in the country. So if they don't have everything perfectly lined up, if all their I's aren't dotted and their T's crossed, they could be liable for whatever crimes lay within those books. And to be fair, I don't know what those are. None of us really know. But if scrutinized, there may be something in there. And every time, as we've seen time and time again in this investigation, every time prosecutors stumble across something of some criminality, they have to investigate it. Every case builds on itself as they keep digging and sifting, and then they refer things out to the Southern District, or they continue to investigate it within the Mueller team. But either way, they will get to the bottom of it.
Could you say that, and some people are out there saying that this is the biggest subpoena that has so far been issued in this entire investigation, the SDNY investigation, even the Robert Mueller investigation. This might have the most impact, might be the most significant thing that investigators are going to be dealing with so far.
It is.
It is indeed. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Next up, let's talk to Stefan calling from Lancaster. Stefan, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hey, love your show. I've only been listening to it for a couple of months, but you are absolutely spot on just about everything I've heard.
Thanks for finding us, buddy.
My dad was a con man. I went to prison a couple of times, so I understand how these people work. And I got to tell some bad advice for Mr. Trump is what my dad always told me. You can't ever trust what somebody on a witness stand is going to say about you. And that's going to come up soon. You can bet on it.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Manafort's trial is underway. Let me see. Michael Flynn has already pled guilty. Rick Gates has pled guilty. Papadopoulos has pled guilty. The Dutch guy, Llewellyn, whatever, he pled guilty. 15 different Russian senior security officers have been indicted. And they keep shouting witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. That's a whole lot of fake witches in handcuffs pleading guilty.
Yeah, no, it's all just ridiculous. I just wonder how long it's going to take before the money guys behind him realize that he's going to be a liability, and they better drop him quick.
Well, it's already happening. The Koch brothers are like, we're done. The Koch brothers are literally encouraging people to vote against Republicans. Let me repeat that, okay, for emphasis for folks that don't follow this minutia of this political landscape. The Koch brothers, these very wealthy billionaires, arch conservatives, they fund all types of conservative enterprises, institutes, and use every bit of power they have that comes with their billions of dollars to recraft and recurate the world to their political and social liking. And they are arch conservatives, totally support Republicans, totally hate the Democrats. And now the Koch brothers, arch supporters of the Republicans, say, we're done with these Republicans. Trump is too much. We think people should vote Democratic in the fall. That, to me, is really significant. When your lead billionaire patrons say they're done with you, look, it's canary in the coal mine in terms of the rest of the worthless billionaires of the world.
That's the other side of the mirror, I'm telling you, my friend.
Right. Thanks for the call, man. Really appreciate hearing from you. Yeah, I'd like to hear about your con artist dad sometime. That's got to be pretty interesting. Yeah, my dad used to rob banks, and he had a drug habit, and he programmed computers, and he was ex-airborne. But none of that affected me. I'm totally normal. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. I'm totally normal. I swear. I insist. No puppet. 818-985-5735 is the phone number here. That's 818-985-KPFK. Let me see. Next up, let's talk to Andrew calling from West Hollywood. Andrew, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hey, Jerry. Thank you for the show. I just wanted to go back to Rich Lowry. He doesn't only work for CNN. He works for NPR. He's a regular contributor to a show called Left, Right, and Center.
Yeah.
And NPR calls itself public radio, but it's not public radio. Pacifica and KPFK are public radio, and that's why we need your network, your station, and your presence in your show. So thank you, man.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate that deep vote of support. I know how lucky I am to do this for a living. I really do. I kind of won the lottery in many ways because it's a job that I deeply care about, that I couldn't be more passionate about, that I am deeply invested in. And I get to talk with y'all all, and I get to talk with other people that want to create good change in the world, that want to make the world better, not just for them and their families, but want to make the world better for people they haven't even met and people they don't know. So there's a tremendous amount of joy associated with this for me. But like any gig, there's some challenges that come up from time to time too. And I say that only to say that I deeply appreciate your vote of trust, support, and confidence. I'm deeply appreciative of the fact that you're following what we do here and that it matters to you. I appreciate that you found us, and I appreciate you taking this ride with us as we try to get out of the swamp together. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. Again, that's 818-985-KPFK. I want to play this in the next clip. This is from Morning Joe, and this is Robert Costa from the Washington Post talking about how Republican representatives are right now moving against the Department of Justice. Let's be clear. The Republican Party of the United States is the party of the Kremlin, and they're doing everything in their power to destroy this investigation that's happening against Trump and his campaign because they're being busted for working for the Kremlin. Now, the white supremacists in the Republican Party have bent the knee. They have brought forth themselves as supplicants, and they themselves are working in the direct employ of the Kremlin. If you are a Republican, you work for the Kremlin. And if you don't believe that's true, then why would the Republicans be seeking to dismantle the Mueller investigation? Why are they filing articles of impeachment against the Deputy Attorney General in an effort to shut down Mueller?
My sources meeting with them over the weekend, they're on high alert, Joe, because they say, look at what's happening on Capitol Hill. Don't ignore it with regard to the Mueller investigation. You have top Trump allies like Mark Meadows of North Carolina, Jim Jordan of Ohio, proposing these articles of impeachment, now a contempt of Congress for Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. And that option is just sitting out there for President Trump, being proffered by his allies, saying if you do want to move on Mueller, if you do believe you have an excuse to go after the Department of Justice over this document fight, you could also go after Rosenstein. And it's just sitting there as a political target. And that has made some Trump allies on edge that if Mueller does start to take some real action legally, that the president could consider making some moves at DOJ.
But, though, John Heilman, I know there are a couple of backbenchers that are...
Yeah, there it is. The Republicans are moving against the Republicans in the employ of the Kremlin are trying to shut down the Mueller investigation because it will expose the fullness of the Kremlin's control of both the presidency and the Republican Party. And everyone in this country is acting like there aren't a bunch of treasonous, feral velociraptors running the Republican Party. Oh, and they're misogynists and racists and Islamophobes and homophobes as well. That's the land we're in. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735 is the phone number. That's 818-985-KPFK. Let me see. Next up, let's talk to Jay calling from L.A. Jay, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
What's going on, Jerry? How you doing?
Good.
Good. Wanted just to comment real quick on you mentioned you were talking about the Clintons earlier and just their history. Wanted to also point out the fact that Clinton was a big supporter of mandatory minimum sentences, which, as you know, people of color in particular for the same types of crimes, as their white counterparts with that mandatory minimum.
Right. You're absolutely right.
I did also want to bring up, though, I did read an article recently, which is another big issue for people of color in particular, which is that seizures of property, mainly like cars, impounding, things like that, seizing of property, seizing of bank accounts and things like that by sheriff's departments and law enforcement have now surpassed the amount of essentially theft value for crime, which is a ridiculous number and a ridiculous statistic. That should just
You're right. The way that law enforcement has been abusing the property forfeiture statutes throughout the country, this happens at every level, the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And the way this broad triumvirate of evil called U.S. law enforcement has been abusing property forfeiture laws to essentially fund any little private projects they want. Because once they get that money, they can't just roll it into their budget and use it for things like health insurance and ordinary expenses they normally have. But all that money they get, they turn over some of it to the state, so it's like a drug. The state says, oh, free money, we like that. And then they get to keep a big portion of it, and they get to buy whatever they want with it. So they get to buy expensive surveillance systems like drones. They get to buy upgraded equipment. They get to expand the reach of their oppression and surveillance by stealing our money off the books and using it to provide ever weaponized surveillance against us. It's a deep problem, and it has to be addressed. And you're right, it's been overlooked for far too long, Jay.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the call, buddy. Appreciate hearing from you. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. In this next clip, we're going to hear from Katie Tur on MSNBC. And it's actually Phil Rucker from the Washington Post that was joining Katie Tur and talks about how the subpoena that was given to the Trump Organization Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg, that subpoena, it's just bad, bad, bad in terms of Trump.
I think he would. He's been working for the Trump Organization for decades now, including for Fred Trump, the president's father. He knows all the expenditures. He knows, times when Michael Cohen might have been reimbursed for these payments. He knows how much Donald Trump is really worth. He knows what's real and what's not real. And talking to, people in Trump's orbit this afternoon, this is being interpreted. This subpoena is being interpreted as a real shot across the bow at the president, and the clearest sign yet that Mueller is going into the president's finances and his business dealings.
Bad, bad, bad. Next up, let's talk to Mike calling from Ukaipa. Mike, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, buddy?
All right. Did you ever get any calls from Ukaipa?
I think this might be the second one since I've come back from Europe, so you'd be like Ukaipa number 2.
All right, good. Hey, a couple of things. I do enjoy your show. You're right most of the time, not all of the time, about 80-90%. Anyway, two things. One, the Koch brothers are not going to support Democrats across the board. They're going to make a few exceptions. They talked about supporting Heidi Heitkamp against, I believe his name is Kramer, but they really didn't mention anything else. So don't get your hopes up too high for the Koch brothers turning over a new leaf. That ain't going to happen.
They're not interested. You're absolutely right. The Koch brothers are not interested in supporting Democrats. They're just so angry and annoyed with Donald Trump that they are withholding their support from Republicans and saying, well, we don't care what happens, and we understand if people don't vote Republican this time. That's not nearly the same thing as them leaning on the progressive accelerator pedal and actually doing some help for the Democrats. They're not doing that. They're simply withholding their largesse from the Republicans.
Now, and then very important, Jerry, again, I do support you most of the time, but you got to, look, do us all a favor. When you get to these guys that are the racist or they're just plain stupid, don't beat them over the head so much. Have your talking points. When they say something, you know it's a lie, counter with the truth. They come up with another lie, you counter with another truth. Don't just go off. I know you explode sometimes, but you got to get yourself under control, talk in measured tones, and just rip them apart with the truth. You don't need to bash them with other stuff. Just point out their falsehoods and hopefully they'll grow.
Yeah, I mean, I generally I like to think over time, if you look at the trend and kind of split the difference, and more often than not, that's exactly what happens is a conversation. But yeah, sometimes you're right. You know what it is? I'll tell you, here's the real deal, Mike. I'm black. So it's really, really difficult for me sometimes, not all the time, but on occasion, it's difficult for me to hear a white supremacist yelling at me, telling me I don't know anything. Because once it reaches that point, it's not that I disagree with him, it's that that person is no longer engaged in the conversation. And at times I'm like, well, then I'm going to disengage too. However, if the racist is willing to have a rational conversation, meaning, you know, we talk back and forth, we're not going to agree, that's fine. But if the racist is willing to have a rational conversation, I love having those chats with them because you just give them enough rope and they reveal themselves as they hang themselves.
Well, I agree. But again, you know, sometimes you get a little, you know, your voice gets up there and you kind of get emotional.
You know I'm from the South Bronx, right? You know, all right, I'm hanging up on you now, you bastard. You know I'm from the South Bronx. Thanks for the call, buddy. Appreciate hearing from you. Taking your calls at 818-985-5735. 818-985-KPFK. Jamaica, Queens represent what? All right, here's a little weird, odd connection that exists between Donald Trump and I. I was born in Jamaica Hospital in Jamaica, Queens. And like Obama, I was born to a legal Muslim parents. No. So I was born in Jamaica Hospital, Jamaica, Queens. And after I was born there, Trump gave the hospital a bunch of money. And now basically the hospital is called the Trump Pavilion in the Jamaica, Queens. It's weird to see Trump's name on the hospital where I happen to have been born. So just, you know, like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. 818-985-5735. And I go by, every time I'm in New York, I go by, you know, you land in JFK, you drive right by Jamaica, Queens, the hospital there in Jamaica Hospital, because, yes, of course, I was born in a hospital, pressed hard against the Van Wyck. My family's from the hood. What? 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Next up, let's talk to Chris calling from Long Beach. Chris, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hey, Jerry. I just wanted to say I love the show. Keep on screaming at the ignorant masses. And just 2 points I wanted to make. First is I just read a book recently called Storm Before the Storm.
Called what?
At the beginning of the end of the...
I'm sorry, what's the name of it?
The Storm Before the Storm.
Storm Before the Storm, okay.
At the beginning of the end of the Roman Republic by Mike Duncan.
Okay.
And it has crazy parallels to the populist movement that's happening right now. And it shows what happens when reform isn't allowed to happen. So you see that happening here where reform is stifled after decade, and people just rise up because they're pissed with it. So
right.
It's an interesting book, and it shows a lot of parallels with how the American empire is.
Cool. Storm Before the Storm.
To the late Roman Republic.
I'll try to give that a look, man. Thanks for the call. It's The Storm Before the Storm. 818, if I find out your father wrote that book, I'm coming for you. 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. We're taking your calls here. Even the late-night comedians, Trump remains a gift to them. Listen to this clip from Seth Meyers on Late Night, where basically says Trump is a mess.
At some point, everyone who's close to Trump turns on him. His ex-lawyer, Michael Cohen, might be cooperating with prosecutors. Omarosa is writing a tell-all book about him. 3 different people who worked for him called him stupid. Even Grimace admitted that when he shot a McDonald's commercial with Trump, he was wearing a wire. And, of course, we all remember when Grimace testified before Congress.
Do you believe Donald Trump colluded with Russia?
And Trump, who demands loyalty but never returns it, always abandons the people closest to him. For example, when Cohen's home and office were first raided by the FBI, Trump, who trusted Cohen with handling some of his most personal and sensitive matters, insisted that he had nothing to do with Cohen.
Let me just tell you that Michael is in business. He's really a businessman, a fairly big business as I understand it. I don't know his business. Michael is a businessman. He's got a business. I would say probably the big thing is his business, and they're looking at something having to do with his business. I have nothing to do with his business. He's got businesses, and from what I understand, they're looking at his businesses, and I hope he's in great shape. Yeah. But he's got businesses.
Trump says the word business like Hodor says Hodor. At his next rally, Trump's going to show up carrying Vladimir Putin on his back.
Hodor.
Immediately.
Hodor. Usually, I be honest, like a bunch of white people running around in a period costume drama, I'm like, next, don't make me throw up. I love Game of Thrones. Awesome, off the hook. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. A few folks have called in, several asking about the American Fool show. Released a record called American Fool, out on temporary whatever. You can check it out on any platform you have, Spotify, Apple, whatever, it's out there. And the only U.S. show that we're doing for the record is happening on Saturday night. It's happening at the World Stage at 4321 Degnan Boulevard in Los Angeles. Again, it's World Stage, 4321 Degnan Boulevard in Los Angeles. 8 o'clock on Saturday. We're doing 2 sets. This is the only U.S. show if you want to come check it out. Also, this month, well, I guess not this month, it's 31st. So next month, Apple Music will be releasing another project of mine that I did with Philip Glass called Whistleblower. It should be interesting, if only because if you don't have any virtual reality gear, you get to check out us performing Whistleblower from end to end, which is about our changing relationship with privacy. And really, it's about Snowden's relationship with the NSA. And Philip Glass and I started working on this project less than 2 weeks after the Snowden documents came out. So we've done a couple dates here in the States. We've done some dates overseas with it. But we are going to be releasing the project on Apple Music and other platforms as a virtual reality project. If you don't have the gear, you get to check out the show from end to end and watch me on stage performing with Phil and the band and doing my thing. If you have the gear, you actually get to walk around on stage with us while we're performing. So I'm super excited. It's also Phil's first virtual reality project, so keep your eyes open for that. Philip Glass, Jerry Quickley, Whistleblower, out on Apple next month. And on Saturday night, I'm doing American Fool, a record that I constructed with my other favorite composer in the world, Reagan Farquhar, and that's at the World Stage, 4321 Degnan Boulevard in Los Angeles. Saturday night, it's going to be a blast. This record is my response to the most difficult year in my life. Has been walking the earth, as well as this torturous political landscape that we find ourselves in. And this record really became a lifeboat for me. It's one of the reasons I'm still with y'all. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Next up, let's talk to Matt calling from L.A. Matt, welcome to the show. What's the deal?
Hey, in reference to that storm before the storm book, there's a video on Pornhub called The Storm Before the Stormy. I'm sorry, I had to get that out.
Are you saying that's the audiobook version of?
Whatever, it's the oral version.
Okay, the oral version of that. Okay, I understand now.
No, what I actually wanted to call in about is, I have no doubt that many years before Trump even dreamed of becoming president, he's been owned by the Russians. They're the only ones that would give him money forever.
Right.
They are counting on tit for tat. But would it not make more sense that, and I'm sure you've read the recent Chris Hedges brilliant article, and that the way, remember the quote from the president of CBS that said, yeah, Donald Trump, bad for the country, great for ratings. And they gave this dude billions of dollars in free coverage. It did not even cover Bernie. And even the subject of what the emails were, that the DNC was subverting Bernie, and they put up, about the worst candidate you could possibly dream of. And wouldn't all of these things have a little more to do with Trump getting in the office?
Of course it does. And you're right, Matt. I think what U.S. press did, particularly cable news, was criminal. Not criminal with a small c, criminal with a capital KKK. It was criminal. And not only was it criminal, it's a prosecutable crime. Okay, after World War II at Nuremberg, they were putting journalists on trial as well for their complicity and facilitation of war crimes. Now, I'm not saying this rises to that level. I'm saying that it is possible through your editorial choices as a journalist to violate the laws and create real harm. And that was done by mainstream media, particularly cable, in its lopsided coverage of Trump in the run-up to the elections and the elections themselves. I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, and I think what they're doing now is trying to shovel the dog poo-poo underneath the rug, going, oh, no, it was the Russians. It was not. It's like, it couldn't be more obvious.
Yeah, the Russians hacked their broken system, you know? Thanks for the call, Matt. Really appreciate hearing from you. We're taking your calls here at 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. But you know what? There is some good news on the horizon. Here's the good news. Representative Stephen Cohen, he's a Democrat, went on Wolf Blitzer yesterday and talked openly about how he anticipates that Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner that there will be indictments issued by Mueller against those two key Trump family members.
All of a sudden, the president's attorney, personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, today telling CNN that he doesn't know if collusion with Russians is even a crime. What do you think of this new line?
Well, I think they're getting closer to knowing that the truth's going to come out, that there was activities with the Trump campaign in Russia and releasing those hacks and guiding them to the states and the localities where they came from. Some of that was Jared Kushner's responsibilities. Some of it was Donald Jr. I think you're going to probably see indictments of both of those people.
Actual indictments from Mueller, specifically against who?
Against Donald Jr. and against Jared Kushner.
You think both of them are going to be indicted by Mueller?
I think that's entirely possible, and I think the president's going to go totally off his rocker, not that he's on it now, and then issue pardons.
What kind of charges could be leveled?
Well, I think they were probably the people that were in connection with the Russians and in conspiracy to affect the elections.
But do you have specific evidence that
No, I can't.
it's a very serious charge.
It's a serious charge, Wolf, and time will show whether I'm correct or not. But I believe I am correct, and if you see it, as we've said before, if it walks like a duck, if it swims like a duck, and if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, and you can see where it's going.
There it is. Taking your calls here at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Next up, let's talk to Oscar calling from San Pedro. Oscar, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Hello. I got a question for you. What do you think of this election in New York Congressional District by Alejandro Ocasio-Cortez beating a 10-term Democratic blue dog? Do you think this is a new wave brewing among the Democratic Party, or is it just one of those things in that district?
I think it was a proper realignment of this moment, this political moment in American history. And by proper realignment, what I mean is you had you're essentially right, a blue dog Democrat, Joe Crowley, who might have been the next Speaker of the House if the Democrats win. He was that tied into the party machine, 10-term, as you said. But let's look at some of the demographics. The communities he represented, like I said, I'm from Queens and the Bronx, okay? I'm from some of the communities he represented. I was born and raised in some of those communities. Those communities are predominantly communities of color. And even more significantly, in terms of demographics, about 55% of that community is native Spanish speaking, or English is a second language to them. So here you have a wealthy white Democratic Party hack who wants to be the Speaker of the House, representing a community that is mostly working class and working poor people of color in the Bronx and Queens. Essentially, Joe Crowley was a carpetbagger who rode the backs of these black and brown people so that he could get political power. And eventually, the backs of those black and brown people were like, hey, get off me. You don't represent us. You don't even, it's not that you don't look like us. You're not speaking our language politically. You're not talking about helping our kids. You're not talking about doing away with student debt. You're not talking about having free health care like the rest of the first world does. You're not talking about anything meaningful other than making backroom deals to help yourself. And here's why Joe Crowley lost, because in the run-up to that primary, there were actually fundraisers that were being held for him by Republicans. Republicans were holding fundraisers for the Democratic candidate. That shows you how completely, utterly tapped out and sold out Joe Crowley was. And thank goodness for the good people of his congressional district who had the presence of mind to say, "We done, son." Thanks for the call. Appreciate hearing from you. Try to squeeze one more call real quick. Let's talk to Roy calling from Compton. Roy, welcome to the show. What's the dealio?
Oh, how you doing, Jerry?
Good.
Jerry, nothing angers me more than every time one of these white people call you and always want you as a black man to calm down and all this kind of nonsense. They don't understand. Being black in this country, with our experiences, it's like being bitten by a venomous snake. And they want you to sit
don't react
and wait for somebody to come by like a doctor. And there's plenty of doctors out there, but they're all driving Mercedes-Benz going 60, 70 miles an hour all around you while you sit there salivating at the mouth while the poison is going to your heart. What's wrong with these people? But you know what? I found out, I realized that by them being white, no matter what happens in the White House and all that kind of stuff and the white supremacists, they're not going to be tormented. So that's why every time you turn on the TV, they're laughing and giggling about it's terrible how this government is and stuff like this and whatever. But they don't really give a damn because, nobody's going to be affected but people of color. And actually, our experiences every day is very damn painful. And they want us to eat ice cream while we're being trampled on by a Sherman tank.
Roy, I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it. And if you're black and you're listening to this program, you're a person of color, you'll understand what I'm about to say next. And if you're black, you really get it. I have a question. How many times have white people told you what to do with your black mouth or your black body? How many times have white people told you that you were doing something inappropriate with your black mouth or your black body? Okay, because that is at the core of a deep element of U.S. racism. It's literally at the core. And if you don't think that that's correct, why do you think Trump is so obsessed with trying to force black NFL players to stand at attention for a national anthem that literally calls for their downfall and calls them slaves? And if those black bastards won't stand at attention, I'm going to deal with them. I'm going to fix it myself, said Trump. You're not dealing with anything. You're not dealing with anything, especially when it comes to black NFL players. You ain't doing nothing but getting a beat down should you choose to enter a ring with them. You worthless white supremacists. Brothers, please take the knee. Brothers, please take the knee. That's it, y'all. I want to thank you so much for joining us today as we try to pilot this ship out of the swamp of racism into the stars of justice. If you want to follow me online, you can using the handle @JerryQuickley on Twitter. Again, that's @JerryQuickley on Twitter. This show is produced by myself and Jose Benavides. Our board operator has been Federico. And if you want to listen to more of the show, you can check us out on SoundCloud.com/TIH Live. Again, that's SoundCloud.com/TIH Live. And I hope to see you at the only U.S. performance for American Fool, which is happening this Saturday at the World Stage, 8 o'clock. It's at 4321 Degnan. If you're in Los Angeles, come on through. It's going to be a great show. I hope to see a bunch of you there. That's it, y'all. Until tomorrow. I'm out.